Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to a new chess strategy and tactics video. So in this video we'll talk about the middle game stage again. Today we'll talk about a very specific middle game that can happen to you. Today we'll talk about the isolated d pawn in the middle game stage. And probably you have heard many things about the isolated d pawn. When we have a position like this, then of course the main goal for black is here to create a blockade, so around the square d5 in front of course this isolated pawn. On the other hand, white of course wants to advance the isolated pawn because it's an isolated pawn. You want to simply improve your pawn structure somehow. But you see, in this particular position, d5 is really never a possibility, especially because black will have a beautiful blockade. You see the knight on f6, the knight on b6, also the bishop on d7 followed with bishop to c6. Then the maneuver of the bishop to c6 will also create a blockade. So how to play this kind of a position? So I wanted to show you this isolated d pawn in a deeper way because I think there are many things that you still have to know about this kind of a pawn structure. It's not only about the blockade and how to advance the pawn. There are many still strategic concepts that I wanted to explain you here, and I think I found a beautiful game that explains the many mistakes that you can make in the isolated d pawn position. And it's a beautiful game played by Botvinnik against Milan Vidmar back from 1936. And first we'll analyze a little bit theory because I really don't want to skip immediately to this position because we want to know how to maybe reach a similar position or the same position, from which opening this position are basically coming. So let's start from the beginning and then we'll see the deep analysis of the isolated d pawn. So with the white pieces, Mikhail Botvinnik opened with the move c4, the English opening, but the game suddenly transposed into the queen's gambit. The client structure: knight to f6, knight to c3, 3 knights variation, and now bishop to e7, bishop to g5. So we have now already this common setup. Now kingside castling, e3, we have the orthodox defense. Really solid. Nothing can happen, I think, immediately here for both sides. You're playing basically 10 moves without calculating so much. You're playing basically normal development moves. So here bishop to d3, we have c5, so black also breaks in the center of the board. And now after a couple of trades of pawns, look at this, Milan Vidmar left here, Mikhail Botvinnik, of course, with the isolated d pawn. And as I said, black wants to create a blockade around the square d5. White, on the other hand, wants to advance the pawn somehow on d5. But if white cannot advance the pawn on d5, then white should simply apply the principle of the maximum activity. Should simply go really full aggressively with all of the minor pieces into the game. On the other hand, black has to apply a very important rule, and it's a simplification rule. You see how Milan Vidmar will eventually get the blockade here, knight to b6, bishop to d7, as we said, but he will really not apply the principle of simplification, because when you play against the isolated pawn. So let's flip the board here a little bit. When you played against the isolated pawn, you can feel here actually that white has a great activity. White has maybe a weakness, but has, I think, a great activity because knights are on natural squares, really on the best squares. Bishop on c4, very aggressive, and also bishop on g5, very aggressive. So you see, although we have some worries in our position here from white's perspective, you have also good opportunities here. So that's why a simplification idea, not only the blockade idea you can make very easily, knight to b6, as we said, knight to d5, but the simplification idea to trade off more pieces to maybe reach the fully endgame stage. What I mean about the fully endgame stage, if you could just imagine this position without even the minor pieces on the board, and I think black would be perfect, because then white will still have this isolated pawn, and maybe in a potential endgame we can get the king on d5 and fix it, and probably black would win this kind of an endgame. So you see now in the next couple of moves how Milan Vidmar will not simplify the game enough. That's the issue here about this video. In this video I wanted to show you really the simplification idea as a common idea to play against the isolated pawn. Not only the blockade is enough, simplification, very important stuff. So here in the continuation, as we said, knight to b6, you see bishop to b3, bishop to d7. So Vidmar is playing so far a good game. He will eventually get his blockade, but now after move queen to d3, knight to d5, here after move knight to e5, you never want to take out, of course, the knight on c3, because you would simply improve suddenly your opponent's weakness. In the beginning, we had the isolated pawn. Now you just improved the pawn structure of white. So after move knight to e5, we have now to move bishop to c6. And now my question here for you is just a little bit strategy, just a little bit opening principles here. What would you play? A rook from a to d1 or a rook from f to d1? Which rook would you move now to the d file? Okay. The best move is, of course, the principle of the last piece that hasn't played so far in the game, and it's, of course, the rook from the a file. So first of all, we play rook from a to d1. It's much, much better, because this rook can maybe be useful on the e file, or can maybe support the aggressive attack with f4, f5. If we would have played here rook from f to d1, then okay, we can maybe take out the c file here, but I think the activity is happening more on the king side. So also a very, very important principle here after rook from a to d1 is, for instance, if you get kicked away by a potential move h6, then you still have the opportunity to retreat. Look at this, you retreat with the bishop, you stay very active with your dark square bishop, but you still keep the rooks connected. If you, of course, play something like rook from a to d, f to d1, pardon me, then after h6, if you retreat, look, you have lost the rook connection. Just a little bit fun about rooks, because I think this has to be known also in normal development. So now after move rook from a to d1, now Milan Vidmar plays already a tiny little inaccuracy, and that's the point about this video. Rook knight on b4 attacks, of course, the queen, but it's not a simplifying move, it's a complicating move, and that's exactly what black doesn't want to play in the isolated pawn position. A better choice is to play knight to d7, forcing simply a trade of pieces, because as we said, we want to reach a position in which we trade off more pieces and then leave our opponent with the isolated pawn. Knight to d7 would be much, much better. But after move knight to b4 that Vidmar played, now queen to h3. Basically, with this move knight to b4, here Milan Vidmar improved the activity of white's pieces. So now he played bishop to d5. Again, he wanted to get a blockade, but you had the blockade anyway. You just reshuffled a little bit your pieces just in order to reach the same goal, just in order to reach the same thing. Now after move bishop to d5 here, after knight to d5, now a new mistake by Vidmar. He plays now knight from b to d5. He again is not playing on the simplification. A better idea is here rook from knight from f to d5, simply forcing further trades of pieces. I think you got the point now. This is really important, because with this move, okay, maybe white is always slightly better, white has activity, but you have to defend this position now like this. After knight from b to d5, again, you see Milan Vidmar reshuffled his pieces, but he got the same position that he cut a couple of minutes ago, and now in this continuation, here Mikhail Botvinnik continues the pressure f4. Now he gains even more activity. The queen is on a better square than the queen was on d3. Now there are some chances here. Knight is very active. Rook lift can happen. Rook to d3, rook to g3, and all of this happened because Milan Vidmar never simplified the game enough. Now after rook to c8, we have now the move f5, e takes f5, rook to f5, and now after move queen to d6. My question here for you is, what would you do now in this particular position? Look at this, how beautifully tactical rich now this position is. White moves and wins the game immediately. This is now really a beautiful chess puzzle for you to solve at home, because I think it's really thematic what happened here. Milan Vidmar chased a little bit Mikhail Botvinnik's pieces all over the board, but by doing so, he actually, as I said, activated the pieces further, and now because he never simplified the game enough, now Mikhail Botvinnik had an immortal, really beautiful tactical sequence. So as I said, pause the video and try to see now the best continuation here for white. Okay, Here the stunner is the beautiful knight takes f7. This is the way to go. Everything is so dynamic, everything is so messed up in black's position. Look at this. If you play king to f7, then the problem is now bishop to f6. Bishop to f6 leads into complications because here rook to d5 will happen. You have to step back with the queen, and there are always discoveries with the bishop, so you will, I think, in the next couple of moves even lose your queen. So after move knight to f7, rook takes f7 was played, but now bishop to f6. Here we have bishop to f6 also by Vidmar. If you play knight takes f6, then the problem is now this one. Rook takes f6, and the rook is hanging here on c8 so it's not working. So after move bishop to f6, that's why bishop to f6. Now we have rook takes d5. Here by Vidmar, you have to now connect the queen to the rook, but now a beautiful deflection motif. Rook to d6 forces here Milan Vidmar to go with the queen on e8, and actually after move rook to d7 in this position, here Milan Vidmar resigned. So great game, great tactic in the end by Mikhail Botvinnik, and I think this is a perfect example of strategy and tactics. I think we had everything in this game: the isolated pawn strategy, mistakes in tiny little inaccuracies in black's position by playing against the isolated pawn. So as I said, the simplification idea, never forget, trade off more pieces, simplify it enough, because we see how, as I said many times now in the video, black simply improved the position of white's pieces by some maneuvers, and from that point on, a great tactician like Mikhail Botvinnik never missed a chance to create this immortal tactical sequence. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this study about the isolated d-pawn. Very, very thematic. You see, we never got the breakthrough idea by white, but it was always there. It was always present as a possibility. Black tried to prevent it, but made, as I said, huge blunders in the game. So if you want to see more about chess strategy and tactics, please check out our series Become a Master in Chess. Here's our playlist, and you can also check out our my Basics in Chess series videos with some other important opening principles, middle game strategies, and end game strategies. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos on What Do We Say? Chess is the best, of course.